In this video, I'm going to discuss the final BTO and SBF application date July 2025 after the sales period has closed. Let's start with the application rate for BTO 2-room flexi. So here is the total amount of supply and demand for 2-room flexi in the BTO exercise. As we can see, the highest demand is in Toa Payoh with over 1,700 applicants, followed by Tampines as a close second. Surprisingly, Bukit Merah and Clementi did not get as much attention as I thought it would, because the gap between Bukit Merah, Clementi, and Toa Payoh, for example, is very big, so this is surprising. If we look at the application rate for 2-room flexi for seniors, we can see that Toa Payoh is the highest with 5.4, followed by Tampines with 5, and then the next one is Clementi 3.8. So Bukit Merah is again not so high. What about for first-timer singles? Well, first-timer singles is a different story. In several towns, the application rate reaches double digits. So for example, for Tampines, this is not a typo by the way guys, it's 43.9, so it's quite high. Followed by Bukit Panjang 26.5, but again, remember for Bukit Panjang, the number is very much distorted because there is a very limited supply for 2-room flexi for singles in that particular town, and then followed by Toa Payoh at 19.7. By the way, this chart I made by myself based on HDB data. If you would like to see the original HDB data and tables, I would put a screen recording at the end of this video, so you can refer to there if you want to see the data source itself. Looking at this table, it's indeed tough, yeah. Even for Sembawang, which is a non-mature town, it's still 6.8 for singles, yeah. But if we want to see it from a positive angle, in October 2025 BTO launch, the government actually pumps up more 2-room flexi options. So check out my video, link in the description box below if you want to know more about what the government will offer for 2-room flexi in the upcoming BTO launch. Next, what about the application rate for first-timer families for 2-room flexi? As we expected, the numbers are not so high because most families would prefer a bigger flat. The exception that we see here is Tampines. There's still quite a lot of demand, even for 2-room flexi. For Bukit Panjang, again, the number is skewed because of the limited amount of supplies. So we need to read this in context. Next up, for second-timer families, for 2-room flexi, again, Tampines is very popular. But interestingly, if you applied for Bukit Merah or Clementi, it's actually more than one. So good news for second-timer families who applied for 2-room flexi BTO, because it is under 1 for Bukit Merah, Clementi, Toa Payoh, and even for Woodlands. Okay, next let's talk about the BTO application rate for 3-room. So here's the total supply and demand for 3-room, and then as we can see again, there is a very strong demand in Toa Payoh. If you wonder how come there's no Tampines here, there's no Tampines because Tampines did not provide 3-room in this particular sales launch. And then for Bukit Merah and Clementi, in terms of demand, pretty much neck and neck, even with Woodlands. So it's quite close with one another. In terms of the application rate, for first-timer families, we can see that the application rate for Toa Payoh is 2, even though the project itself has a 10-year MOP because it's classified as prime project. So this is actually an anomaly because typically if it's getting the 10-year MOP, then people generally avoid the 3-room, which we can see this in Bukit Merah and Clementi also because the application rate is not so high. But then I think Toa Payoh is the exception because it is so high in demand that some people are willing to set aside that it's a prime project with a very strict set of restrictions. But we can see for Bukit Merah is undersubscribed. For Clementi, it's 1, so it's quite okay. Probably good news then for people who applied for 3-room at Bukit Merah for first-timer families. So good news to them. Next one for 3-room second-timer families. In some towns, the application rate is double-digit, like in Toa Payoh, Clementi, and Bukit Merah, which is kind of expected because the amount of supply for second-timer families is indeed far more limited. But then even for non-mature areas such as Bukit Panjang and Sembawang, it's still quite a high application rate. Next, let's discuss about application rate for BTO 4-room. In terms of total supply and demand, we can see Toa Payoh really takes the crown because it even doubles the amount of demand in Bukit Merah. For me, the surprise would be Clementi because Clementi is located near several good schools. So I am quite surprised that for 4-room BTO, the amount of demand is actually less than Bukit Merah, but probably the gap is not that big anyway in the bigger scheme of all. So this is the total supply and demand. Now let's move on to talk about the application rate for 4-room BTO first-timer families. Tampines is the highest with 6.7, followed by Tampines with 6.4. Now, if we compare between the prime projects, it's quite surprising that Bukit Merah is underperforming. I would say initially I thought Bukit Merah will end up somewhere in the range of 3 probably, but apparently it's not. Clementi, I think, is as expected. I wasn't expecting among the prime projects. I wasn't expecting Toa Payoh to get the highest attention, especially because nearby of the Toa Payoh ascent, actually there's another BTO that is also young but only classified as a standard. So apparently that factor did not comes into play for many of the applicants. And Tampines, again, we have discussed, this project is classified as standard, which is probably one of the main reasons why so many people applied for Tampines, because of the combination of acceptable location and it's only a 5-year MOP, etc. For second-timer families, we see in some towns the application rate again reaches double digits. The highest is at Tampines with 28.6, followed by Toa Payoh at 27.9. So the trend is actually pretty similar, where in terms of rank, it would be Tampines, Toa Payoh, Clementi, then Bukit Merah. So it's pretty consistent in terms of trend. Now let's talk about the application rate for 5-room and 3-gen. So this is the supply and demand for 5-room BTO. As we can see that the amount of applicants in Tampines is really a lot, more than 1,200, even though the supply is only 100. And then followed by Woodlands, Bukit Panjang, then Sembawang. Now let's look at the application rate for 5-room BTO first-timer families. So Tampines is towering at 8.4, significantly higher than the other towns offered. Sembawang, interestingly, is still less than 1. So congratulations to whoever applied as first-timer families in Sembawang for 5-room. Then you should be able to secure your flat. For second-timer families, the trend is almost similar, but of course, it's just the numbers that are different. For Tampines, it's 52.4, and this is not a typo, by the way. It's really like this. And then followed by Bukit Panjang and then Woodlands. This again emphasizes how popular Tampines is across the different flat type. Now let's talk about the application rate for SBF, and starting from 2-room flexi first. So this is the total supply and demand for 2-room flexi SBF. Interestingly, in terms of number of applicants, the highest is ended up being Tengah actually, with 706. But of course, this is a combination across different applicants category. This is the total supply and demand. So it's senior plus first-timer singles plus first-timer families, etc. I'm guessing a lot of people applied for 2-room flexi SBF in Tengah because it has the most amount of supply. So probably people think that they would have better chances there. But then Tampines is something different because the amount of supply is actually very low, only 30, but then the amount of applicants are 629. So this is interesting. Okay, now let's talk about the application rate for 2-room flexi SBF for seniors. Tampines takes the lead with 29.7, and then quite a lot of the application rate here already reaches double digit. So the runner-up is Hougang, followed by Sengkang, But then again, when we look at this, we have to pay attention that because this is SBF, the amount of supply really skewed the data. So for example, for Tampines, Hougang, and Sengkang, the amount of supply is not that much. That's why the application rate becomes very high. For Tengah, actually Tengah, even though the application rate is only 4.6, but then again, they have quite a lot of supply, hence the application rate looks lower, but that doesn't mean that it's less in demand. For SBF, first-timer singles, we can see here, oh boy, it's triple digit, mostly with exception of Tengah. So I double-checked these numbers. This is really what was being released. So yeah, I think the key takeaway from my end is for first-timer singles, in general, BTO would give singles a better chance, I think, versus SBF. Probably because in SBF, generally the amount of supply is really, really, really low. Then it's very difficult and very competitive. So I would recommend for singles to consider BTO next time around, even though there is an SBF exercise at the same time. You probably still stand a better chance to apply through BTO. So the most popular one is Punggol with 281, followed by Woodlands at 267 application rate. Now let's move on to the application rate for first-timer families for two-room flexi. Now this is the polar opposite, whereby for first-timer singles, it's in the triple digit, but then for first-timer families, it doesn't even hit 1. So everything is like 0 point something. So that's interesting, and I don't know whether this would eventually trigger the HDB to change their rules. Probably for second-timer families, this is the application rate for SBF. So the highest is at Punggol with 17, followed by Woodlands at 16, and also Yishun with 15. Now let's talk about the application rate for 3-room SBF, starting with the supply and demand first. So the most demand that we are seeing is from Tampines, and then followed by Woodlands. Now for Tampines, it's interesting because it seems like applicants doesn't really care about the amount of supply, is it? Like there's actually not that many supply, but then people still apply anyway. I mean, Woodlands still makes sense because it has a lot of supply. Then it makes sense to apply there. I don't know, guys. Let me know in the comment section down below. For those of you who applied for either BTO or SBF this year, do you pay attention to the number of units, or you just applied anyway? Let me know in the comment section down below. Now for application rate for first-timer families for SBF, the highest is at Tampines at 4.7, followed by Hougang at 3, and then Punggol and Yishun both are at 2, and then the rest is either 1 point something or less than 1. For second-timer families, SBF 3-room, again not a typo, Tampines and Punggol really in the triple digit, but then again, even other towns are already at double digits, so definitely very, very tough competition. Now let's talk about the application rate for SBF 4-room. In terms of supply and demand, actually the highest supply is at Kalang Whampoa, but then the demand is actually less than that. The town that is receiving the most applicants is Geylang for SBF 4-room, followed by Tampines, so that's interesting. So Geylang I can understand because the amount of supply is a lot, but then for Tampines actually there's not much supply there, so that's interesting to see. In terms of the application rate for first-timer families, SBF 4-room, the highest one is at Hougang, followed by Sengkang, and then the next one is Punggol. Next, for the application rate for second-timer families 4-room, as you can see, some of these numbers are already in triple digit. The highest one is at Punggol with 206 application rate, followed by Sengkang at 157, so definitely quite high. Even the rest is mostly in double digits. Okay, now let's move on to talk about the application rate for SBF for 5-room, 3-gen, and executive apartments. So if you see the total supply and demand, we can see that there's actually quite a lot of supply in Tengah compared to other towns, But then in terms of demand, the highest is actually at Tampines, which doesn't have a lot of supply, and also Woodlands is also quite high, so that's interesting. If we see at the application rate, the highest now is Punggol with 8, followed by Tampines with 5.9. But then at least the rest are still in less than 5, so that's still somewhat acceptable. For second-timer families, the application rate is significantly much higher. Some of them are already in the triple digits. The highest one is Yishun, most likely because it has a very limited supply, followed by Tampines and then Woodlands. Now, again, interestingly, for Tengah, it doesn't receive as many interest as other towns. So, again, I kind of think that applicants doesn't really pay attention to how many units available is it. Just apply and then see how it goes, probably. Anyway, after this, I will share the screen recording of the raw data that I'm using from HDB, so you can use that as a reference. If you are applying for this SBF and BTO, I wish you all the best. If you are keen to know what projects are available in October, go visit my channel because I have other videos discussing about that as well. And I wish you all the best in your property journey. To get exclusive contents and support my work, click the join button to be part of the online family. Your support means a lot to keep us independent. Don't forget to join the membership and I'll see you on my next video. Bye bye!